We actually talked like an English person.
Yes, we did.
We are Gracia and Itia, and about a year ago, we decided to show the world you can travel proper while being pauper. We decided to go on an adventure of our lives and got on a plane to New York, where we bought and built our dream home on a budget. Now here's a small part of our journey, our first 10 states in our tiny van.
State number 1, New York. So our journey started in JFK Airport, where our favorite movie was filmed, The Terminal. And that's where I fed Gracia on her favorite food in the world, a bakwa bagel, before we went over to do very, very basic touristy stuff like see Grand Central's terminal, go to Times Square, have a Krispy Kreme, and then have a deli meal before going on to eat our favorite food, my favorite food in the world, char kway teow, which was actually not bad. But then we had the most delicious pork chop in Chinatown, New York, which was absolutely delicious, before heading back up to Ithaca for a super long drive where we were stuck in snow for over a week, knee deep literally, and we had the best ever pasta in circus truck, and the rest of our time in Ithaca just looked like that, building our van.
State number 2, New Jersey. They say the only thing to do in New Jersey are the highways out of Jersey. But as Singaporeans and foodies, how could we ever miss the Anthony Bourdain food trail? So we visited each and every single one of the stops, with our first being Frank's Deli, where we had Anthony Bourdain's famous submarine sandwich and met the waitress who made it for him. We also met the kindest woman who bought us our first ever meal here in America. We then met our next friend Chris at Lucille's, where he invited us to his house, and we shot flies with salt guns for the first time. We also saw his car collection, which was super cool. From Kubo's and Barnegat Light to fancy dining in Atlantic City, our favorite was still Hiram's, the unassuming hot dog stand. We then had our very last meal in Camden, New Jersey, before heading to Philly for some cheesesteaks.
State number 3, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was super fun for the both of us, and that was because the tourist attractions in Pennsylvania are super fun. You could go from museum to city and see completely different things. You could go into the mountains and you could see a house in the middle of the mountains that is supposedly super popular. You could see waterfalls and chocolate factories, and you could even go into Longwood Gardens and see an exact replica of Mount Faber Lodge. But the most fun thing for us was going into the middle of the woods, 3 hours into nowhere, and having a Snickers bar. Not really. Actually, it was actually us going into Ole Bowl and finding a random bar of nowhere called Jeff's Bar, where we literally just walked into a bar and saw 3 old white men just having beer. They asked us to come in, they bought us drinks, they paid for our gas, they gave us free hats, they let us hold their guns, actual machine guns. They took us for a ride on their snowmobiles. We played games, we met 3 of their dogs before heading off in order for our mission to find Amish people. The Amish are an exclusive religious group which don't favor interactions with the outside world. They keep to themselves and their own community and don't even use electricity. So we went to every single supermarket out there that we thought we could interact with an Amish person, from food stalls to bakeries, and we finally found this one house where Amish people would talk to us, and they gave us some cheese. And the boy next door even invited us into his house and showed us his little carriage and horse. This made Pennsylvania so worth it.
State number 4, West Virginia. West Virginia holds great significance in the history of America, being the only state that was formed during the Civil War. But other than its impressive history, it also had great Chinese food, as we tried out golden chopsticks and had a poo-poo platter for the first time. We then headed to the casino and made a little bit of money. Now to Ohio. State number 5, Ohio. Ohio was a state that was old school and kind of modern all at once. Eastern Town Center was one of our most beautiful night walks. And the next morning, we headed to North Market, where it is an impressive array of all kinds of international foods. But what we had was hot chicken takeover. The chicken was not too great, but the banana pudding was great. We then headed to find the first ever Wendy's, which is now actually just an office. We then went to educate ourselves at the Book Loft, which is one of the biggest ever bookstores in the world with 40 over different sections, before ending our trip in Ohio at Cleveland at the Rock and Roll Museum with a little bit of Dolly Parton.
State number 6, Delaware. Did you know that Joe Biden was from the state of Delaware? He even has a railroad station named after him in Delaware. We tried his favorite restaurant called Charcoal Pit, we had the burger, we met his waitress, and it was a pretty good restaurant. We even went to University of Delaware where he had a tiny football career stint. And then we went to the Joe Biden Welcome Center before trying a Delaware famous dish called slippery dumplings, which wasn't very good. And finally Capriotis, the self-proclaimed best sandwich in the world. It was okay, not the best, but alright.
State number 7, Maryland. Maryland started at Bald Eagle Park for us, where we headed over and tried to actually catch some bald eagles flying over the open waters. Sadly, we didn't really see any. After, we headed to Baltimore, the capital, where it was actually really pretty. We then headed to Pioneer Pit Beef, where we had one of the most delicious beef sandwiches ever. But at last, our eating was not yet done for the day. Before we left Maryland, we headed to an all-you-can-eat crab buffet and tried hush puppies for the first time. It was yummy and fun.
Not a state, but Washington DC. So there are a couple of things in Washington DC that everybody must do for the first time there. You have to go up the National Monument, and don't forget to reserve your free ticket one day in advance in order to get up there to check out the beautiful view. Another must-see is the Lincoln Memorial at night. It is super grand and stunning. Lastly, don't forget to check out the great food in Washington DC. Check out Ben's Chili, where almost all the presidents have eaten there. Their hot dogs are great and the banana pudding is good. We also went to Georgetown Cupcakes and we got a good fix of cupcakes there as well. But the coolest thing was eating Ethiopian food, as DC is home to the largest Ethiopian population outside of Ethiopia.
State number 8, Virginia. They say Virginia is for lovers, and the world is your oyster. So of course we had to go get some oysters in Virginia. And we had some fish tacos on the side as well. It was delicious. And for dessert, we drove past our first ever hot Krispy Kreme and we went in and dug in. To walk up the calories, we then did what lovers do, which is have a romantic walk, before heading onto the Blue Ridge Parkway.
State number 9, North Carolina. The Blue Ridge Parkway is a national parkway and an all-American road in the United States. It's noted for its scenic beauty, and the parkway, which is America's longest park, runs for 469 miles through Virginia all the way to North Carolina. Pretty much all we did there for a couple of weeks was just cook outdoors, walk around, have a great time, and see beautiful mountain views, and spend some quality time with each other. Not long after that, we headed to Mystery Hill, where we found the weirdest things happening. Balls would roll uphill, the swing would go backwards. And that was enough for North Carolina.
State number 10, South Carolina. After our breakfast at Rainbow Donuts, our van broke down and we were like, oh no. But somehow we made it to the beautiful city of Charleston, all the way south of South Carolina. We then began our pickup journey and went to the Sunday market where we saw a lot of good food. But we only got a cookie and maybe something else on the side. Our next stop was Angel Oak Tree, where we saw one of the biggest trees that we had ever seen in our entire lives. Our next stop was America's only tea plantation, where Lipton tea was produced. But here comes our highlight for South Carolina, where we got to pluck oysters for free by the bay and then cook them for dinner. It was so delicious that we never ever had an experience like that. And it was free of charge, of course, which made it all the more better. We then spent the rest of our beautiful evening at a bar called Chicofio, listening to live music, and then enjoying the beautiful sunset of South Carolina.